From the campus of the Ignite Institute at the Roebling Innovation Center in Erlanger, Kentucky, Ignite Student Media presents the first annual Ignite Institute Political Forum.
Hello, my name is Peyton Perez, and I'm a first-year scholar in the Education College here at Ignite Institute. I'd like to start by thanking Representative Koenig for taking time to participate in our debate. Representative Koenig graduated from Covington Catholic High School and went on to receive his bachelor's degree from Miami University. Representative Koenig was elected to the Kentucky House of Representatives in November of 2006. He is chairman of Licensing, Occupations, and Administrative Regulations Committee. Representative Koenig is a past chairman of the Northern Kentucky Legislative Caucus. Prior to his election as a state representative, Representative Koenig served 3 years as a Villa Hills City Councilman and 8 years as a Kenton County Commissioner. In addition to this, Representative Koenig is a realtor with Coldwell Banker West Shell. All the questions we will be asking Representative Koenig have been written and read by Ignite student scholars.
Good morning, Representative Koenig. My name is Deefi Dayo, and I'm a first-year scholar at the Ignite Institute. Here's my question. In 2017, there was an average ACT score in Kentucky of exactly 20. Since then, they've been dropping. In 2019, the average recorded ACT score was 19.8. The national average was 20.7. So even before we started dropping, we were below the national average. What do you think is the cause, and what have and will you do to bring scores back up?
Well, thanks for your question. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you all today. And I just want to say that thank Mr. Smith, who I think organized this, and I was one of his guinea pigs a couple of years ago over at, what was it, Ackerman, I believe, when he put this together for my race a few years ago. So that is kind of a look in time, and there's a lot probably to unpack with regards to your question. I think one of the good news is I think that score you cited in 2017 was we were on our way up. Kentucky had been ranked quite low in education, usually 48th, 49th, 50th in most rankings when I arrived in Frankfort in 2007. And I'm not trying to take credit for this. I'm just saying things have been going up over time. And obviously we've slipped a little in that regard, in that question, or in that category, I should say. What's the cause? I'm not smart enough to tell you that. I'm not on the education committee, and I don't have any particular experience. I've spoken with education professionals, obviously. I hear a lot of cries for more money, which is certainly you have to have money to run any sort of thing, and I'm proud to say that in the last couple budgets, we've increased the SEEK funding formula for the first time in a long time, probably over a decade. And so hopefully that has helped us. But, you know, there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed, and I think a lot of them are systemic in education in that we're working on largely the same system that we've been using in education for decades, if not a century. This is a prime example of what can be done differently in order to improve our educational system in Kentucky. This is a unique school, and you all have a tremendous opportunity to go to a wonderful facility like this. It's innovative, and we need more innovation in our school system. Like I said, we've been doing the same thing in large part for decades. And as scholars in the education department, I hope you will, you know, as you're learning, question why we've been doing things the way we've been doing. I'm not saying all of them are right and all of them are wrong, but we need to challenge the norms and say, you know, if we've been doing it this way for 70 years, are there other ways we can do it? What can we do to change it? Is it serving the students rather than those in administration, those on school boards, those in Frankfurt. You know, everything should be student-focused, first and foremost. And I don't know that that's always what happens with policy when it comes to education. So I would encourage you all, as you're coming up, to challenge those norms as you see them.
Thank you for your response, Representative Koenig.
Thank you for the question.
Good morning. My name is Emma Teagarden, and I am a second-year scholar here at the Ignite Institute. Here's my question. Weeks before the election, many voters are concerned if their vote will remain secure. On one side, some think mail-in ballots are a bad idea because their vote might be changed and not remain secure. On the other hand, some voters agree with mail-in ballots considering there's a pandemic going on. What are your thoughts on the election security and mail-in ballots?
My thoughts are there are many checks and balances and ways to make sure that everything is done properly, and I think they are safe and secure and fair. This year, obviously, we all know what's been going on with the pandemic, and we, as a legislature, decided to give the governor and the secretary of state the ability to basically change the rules for the elections this year. And to that, and one of the beauties of that is we have a Democratic governor and a Republican secretary of state. So we basically made them work together to come up with a bipartisan solution. And they did that, and not everyone's happy with it, and usually that's a sign that they did it right. So they've been using mail-in ballots all over the country, and as far as safe and secure, I think they're fine. Where you have a problem, from my perspective, and the perspective of many others, is when you just mail out ballots to everyone who's registered to vote. You know, those lists are not completely right at any time. There was a report in the Kentucky Gazette a couple weeks ago that said that there are more registered voters than people in 25 counties in Kentucky. For whatever reason, I could go into the detail and bore you, but these lists haven't been purged for a long time. People moved from Kentucky to Ohio, and they changed their voter registration to Ohio. Ohio doesn't communicate with Kentucky and say, okay, this person is now registered in Ohio, take them off in Kentucky. So you only get taken off if you basically haven't voted in 4 or 5 years. And even when that happens, the previous Secretary of State still didn't purge those people from the list. So that's where the concern of fraud is when you send something to every registered voter, okay? So I think everything is secure, and the votes will be counted properly. Is there someone who's going to commit fraud here and there? Sadly, yes. Will that be 1 or 2 or 3 votes and change the outcome of an election? No, it's not going to change the outcome of an election. You know, unless there's one race that has 1 person or a difference of 1 vote. I will say that, and this wasn't part of your question, but I'm interested in seeing how this goes. This is really the first time we've had no excuse mail-in ballots. And I've never been a fan because I think we're better served when everyone has the ability to get as much information and have the same amount of information as everybody else, and then everybody goes on election day and votes, except for people who get absentee ballots because they're not physically able, they're old, whatever, they're out of town that day. So that concerns me, and I was thinking the other day about people who, you know, let's say you go or you got a mail-in ball and you've already sent it in, and sometime between now and election day, unfortunately, you pass away. Well, your vote's already in there. You wouldn't be able to vote on election day. So you have a different electorate than you would have had otherwise. Just things like that that concern me, and we're probably never going to completely go back to the way it was before. We'll probably, going forward, have some level of mail-in ballots or early voting. And so that's something we're going to have to take under consideration. Furthermore, one last thing. For anyone who thinks there's too much money in politics, early voting makes campaigns more expensive for us to run. So it's hard for anyone to say, well, I don't like money, the money that it takes and the money that people have to ask for, people like me have to ask for, but then you have to early voting. Those two things really don't work together. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Good morning, Representative. My name is Nora Holmes, and I'm a freshman scholar here at the Ignite Institute. Recently, schools around the country have been opening. Most of these schools are following guidelines to keep students 6 feet apart and wearing masks. The Ignite Institute, as well as my home high school, are enforcing all of these things but are unable to keep us distanced on the bus. Bus transportation is something most families need, with parents having jobs. Issues like this leave family members concerned as cases of COVID-19 in school-age children has increased significantly since August. What could you do to help these children?
It's actually a question. It's not something I've thought of. I know that certainly parents who have concerns, I believe, have the option of having their children engage in NTI full-time from home, if that's a concern. Everything's a balancing act in life and in politics and in policy. I've talked to several teachers, and I don't think there's any teacher who doesn't say that in-person learning is vastly superior to the remote learning. So I think it's important to get you all here in person so that you can, we spend literally between, I figured this out, local, state, and federal dollars just in Kentucky, over $10 billion a year to educate our citizens. And the vast majority of that goes to, those of you under 18. And so we want to get the most out of that as possible. You all want to get the most out of that as possible, or you wouldn't be at this great institution. So I'm sure that the school districts have protocols in place to clean the buses and make it work as best they can. And I don't know what those are, to be honest. But if the school districts come to us and say, we need your help in Frankfort to do X, Y, Z to help keep kids safe, whether it's on the buses, in the schools, or whatever else, I'm sure if it's at all possible, we'll do it. Sure.
Good morning, Representative Koenig. My name is Gavin Zimmer, and I'm a first-year scholar here at Ignite. According to Facebook, fake news outnumbers real news 6-1. However, social media platforms can't do anything about it because it gives away our right to free speech. What is your interpretation of the term fake news, and why do you think there is so much of it compared to real news, especially on major news sources and social media platforms?
I guess my definition of fake news is news that comes from A is intended to deceive. And honestly, I can't stand the term in general. You'll never have heard me use it. I don't use it. The fact of the matter is there are people who are out there to deceive either directly or indirectly, to stir up trouble, to cause divisions amongst us, to get their point across. And you all are in a unique position. I mean, we didn't have to deal with this when I was your age. You know, cable TV just came out when I was your age. And so our options were limited when it came to news, and everyone tried to provide news in an unbalanced manner back then. So you all have to focus on figuring out who's delivering this news, find trusted sources that you believe are hopefully unbiased, and you know, pay attention to them. And it's so hard to find unbiased news nowadays that you have to know what sort of filter that it's coming at you from. If, you know, look, I'm a Republican, I hardly ever watch Fox News. In fact, I'd say I never watch Fox News. I will occasionally watch MSNBC or CNN, and I know what's coming at me through that filter. You know, the best news for unfiltered is probably NPR or BBC World News if you want, but it's just not as exciting, and that's where that comes from. So I don't know if I've done a good job of answering your question, but you know, it's a problem with our nation that we have people who are so segregated. They listen to what they want to listen to. They believe what they want to believe, regardless of any facts to the contrary. And, you know, I would just encourage you all to listen to every side. And as I just said, I mean, I watch CNN and MSNBC infinitely more than I watch Fox News because it's important to hear the other side. And it's important to know what, you know, in my business, it's important to know what the other side is thinking. So that's the best answer I have for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning. My name is Erica Dolan. I'm a second-year scholar here at Ignite. Representative Koenig, you were the main sponsor for House Bill 137, the bill that would have expanded gambling in racetracks, Kentucky Speedway, and whose funds would have gone to support tax revenue and public pension plans had it not been stalled in the Kentucky Senate. 66% of Kentuckians say that they support the bill. However, the majority of conservative Republicans in the General Assembly have said they would not support the expansion of gambling. You yourself are a Republican, so why is the expansion of gambling so important to you, and why should it matter to Kentuckians?
Well, thank you for asking that question. So that bill specifically was to allow for betting on sports. So it wasn't an expansion of gambling in that you couldn't do a lot of things that you could do at a casino, which we are surrounded by. There are some things in Northern Kentuckians kind of think differently than a lot of the rest of Kentuckians. And this is one of those things. It's important to me in that I believe that we should treat adults like adults. According to the American Gaming Association, $2 billion is wagered illegally every year on sports by Kentuckians. Those Kentuckians are wagering with either a bookie or an offshore account. There are no protections, okay, for those citizens. If this bill were to pass, and I will file it again next year, A, we tax it, which generates revenue. B, we regulate it so that we know that it's being done properly. C, we put some money to addiction prevention services, which, you know, between that $2 billion, the money that's wagered on the lottery, money that's wagered on horse racing, money that's wagered on bingo in Kentucky, you pour all that together, you're looking at $5 billion. And right now we have no services for people that have addiction issues with it. So I think that's important. And to the point, you know, the offshore accounts and the bookies, they'll keep taking your money even if you're out. When this is legalized, these companies are very sophisticated, They have AI that knows when you're, as they say, on tilt, meaning you're chasing your losses and you're just trying to get back to even, and they will stop you. They will allow you to put a limit and say, don't let me bet more than $100 every week. Bookies aren't going to do that. They'll keep taking your money. So there's going to be a lot of protections. If, you feel like you won this bet and your bookie says, no, you didn't, well, where do you go? Are you going to go to the police? No, you made an illegal wager. So you're not going to do that. This gives you protections if you have a disagreement with the person, with the entity that took your bet. So there's just a lot of protections in there. And there's nothing that there's received board unanimity in my 14 years in the legislature, specifically with campaigning, and where my constituents say, we're surrounded by casinos, this is revenue we're losing, why can't we have expanded gambling in this state? As a Republican, I'm a Republican because I grew up in the age of Ronald Reagan, who believed in personal responsibility. And I'm, generally not a fan of government keeping people from themselves. If it's something that is not harmful, I'm not going to go legalizing heroin or cocaine, but this is something that people do all the time. It's fun for them. It can and will be done by most people responsibly. And, I'm not interested in keeping literally 98 or 99% of the people that want to do it from doing it because 1% to 2% of the people have a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carly Waters. I'm a first-year scholar here at Ignite. Since September 3rd, the COVID-19 cases have gone up. Governor Beshear has said that the daily increase is higher than normal for a typical Monday because we're in escalation. Since the cases are increasing, how will we handle this? Will places need to be closed since cases are increasing?
Well, so we have given, I shouldn't say we, the governor has been doing what he's been doing ever since this begun because he has powers to do so under KRS 39A, which are his emergency powers. I don't know what he will do. Given the past, I'm guessing if things continue to go up, numbers continue to go up, he will implement some of the things he had done before, shutting down public businesses and whatnot. Really, Kentucky's numbers related to the rest of the country have been low. And honestly, Northern Kentucky's numbers have been low compared to the rest of the state. And I've been quite proud of Northern Kentuckians. You go to other parts of the state outside of Lexington and Louisville, if you go to rural areas, people just walk around without masks and don't think anything of it, and they're kind of proud of it. You go into Kroger's or restaurants around here, everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, and I think that's great. So to answer your question directly, I don't know what's going to happen. I do believe that the governor should include legislative leaders more. Unfortunately, he has we learn what's going on at his press conferences with everybody else. And that's not the way our government should run, in my opinion. And one of the first things we'll take up when we go back into session in January is restricting some of those powers that he has. Those powers were created decades ago when the legislature showed up in Frankfurt 3 months out of every 2 years. So when we're not there very much, and we're still not there very much, but when you're there 3 of 24 months, you got to give the governor a lot of power to run government when the legislature's not there. But what they had in mind is for the governor to be able to create emergency powers for tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, that sort of stuff. I don't think it was designed with a pandemic in mind. So we're going to make it so that he can't institute these things for months and months at a time without coming to the legislature. You know, I think it's important that we all work together. Certainly, we legislators are closer to the people than the governor. We're out in the communities every day. We see what's needed, and so I think that's something that we're going to do, and I think it'll be good government, frankly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning. My name is Kaylee Harrison, and I am a first-year scholar at Ignite. My question is, President Donald Trump and the Republican Party are investing the removal of Obamacare. Eliminating Obamacare would include deriving citizens of affordable prescriptions, reasonable health care, and no denied coverage. Do you see COVID-19 evolving those decisions and commencing a new path of the evolution of health care while maintaining an affordable budget?
Well, that's an excellent multi-pronged question. First, I'm going to deflect a little bit and say, you know, that's something that they get to do at the federal level. And so that's a little out of my universe of things, but I will talk about it from the state perspective. The Obamacare was, you know, obviously a controversial issue and important to some, but it has cost the state hundreds of millions of dollars because it's not all paid for by the federal government. A lot of it is, but last number I remember is that it costs the state $400 or $500 million to put more people on Medicaid, basically, which is what it does. And we have so much of our citizens whose health care is being paid for by government, and hey, I'm one. I get my health insurance through the state, that it's getting remarkably expensive. There's arguments on both sides. They're both good arguments from the supporters who say, you know, everyone deserves, healthcare should be a right. And, you know, I'm more on the, once you give away programs, it's almost impossible to ever end them, no matter how expensive they are. Healthcare seems to just continue to go up and up and up. And it's because, you know, it's expensive. Everyone expects top shelf care but doesn't want to pay the prices for it. And as technology has increased and our healthcare services have gotten better, it becomes more expensive. And when you get government involved in so much of it, it really becomes expensive. Now, and my fellow Republicans in Frankfurt know how I feel about this, and so I will say this, and I would say it if they were all in this room. There's a bunch of Republicans in Frankfurt who are against Obamacare, but Obamacare is frankly nothing but a bunch of mandates of you have to cover this and you're required to get on. There's no mandate in Frankfurt, health insurance mandate, that I have voted for except for one, and that's only because it costs no money. And pass them all the time, and all these Republicans vote for them to require chiropractic care, or to require that every policy cover, you know, coverage for this cancer and that cancer, which sounds great, except every time you do that, we get a health insurance mandate report that says it's going to, you know, this is going to add between $1 and $3 every month to every policy in Kentucky. Well, that sounds like nothing until you've done it a dozen times, and now everyone's policy is $25 more expensive every month. So the fact of the matter is we have everyone, at least in northern Kentucky, has access to care. We have a St. Elizabeth system that is a nonprofit that they will give everyone care. We have health departments that all of our taxpayer dollars go to, and they provide care. Is it as good a care as others who have, better health insurance? Probably not. So the question needs to be, in my view, does everyone deserve the exact same amount of care? And we'd like to say the answer is yes. But to say that means, okay, then if we do that, then everyone will get the exact same care from the government, and then you're not allowed to pay for more. And that's just not going to happen. So it's obviously a deep philosophical debate that I've gone way more into than I thought I would when I started answering your question. But, everything is a cost, and you can't just keep giving things away without having an end to where the cost goes. And certainly in Kentucky, we have a lot of needs. Education, we started with. And the fact that, a lot of people feel like we don't spend enough money on it. We have one of the worst, if not the worst, funded retirement systems in the nation. $40 billion at least that we're in the hole, that we could use that $400 million to fill up. I could go on and on. So everything is a push and pull and a decision on what you need to do in government. And I'm just go back to where I started, which is however you feel about Obamacare, it has cost the state directly a lot of money in order to implement it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good morning, my name is Amia Bird, and I'm a freshman scholar here at Ignite. In 2017 to 2018, about 19% of all the primary and secondary schools offered any courses entirely online. If you are re-elected for the House of Representatives, do you plan on the schools going back full-time anytime soon?
Well, I'm a fan of local control as much as possible. And what works in one school district doesn't necessarily work in another school district. So I would lean towards giving each school district the ability to make those determinations for themselves. But as I said earlier, I believe that in-person education works best. And if there are teachers in this place listening that want to, change my mind on that, I'm more than happy to listen to it. But, from the teachers I've spoken with, it seems to be a unanimous opinion. There are programs obviously designed specifically for remote learning, and there are probably some kids who do better with that for whatever reason. But yeah, I think that we invest a lot of money into education, and we need to get the most bang for our buck that we can. And we can do it safely, and we need to do it safely. But I think we need to get you all here in person as much as we can.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ethan Akers. I am a sophomore scholar here at Ignite Institute. Due to COVID-19, several families lost their jobs. For a few people, it was only temporary, and they were able to pick work back up after a few months off. But owners of small businesses couldn't afford the rent and lost their buildings. Other businesses had to limit the amount of people allowed to work at a time, which resulted in having to lay people off. October's unemployment rate is 7.2%, which doesn't seem that bad on its own, but when compared to March's unemployment rate, which was 4.5%, it's gone up by 2.7% in only 6 months. What do you think you could do to help these families who are struggling for money with no job? And how can you help small businesses that are hanging on a thread to stay open?
Excellent question, and I appreciate that. And let me just say that, when I ran for office, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get government out of the way as much as possible and as much as makes sense in order to enable businesses to flourish, people to get jobs, good paying jobs. And I'm pretty proud of our record. In 2016, we Republicans took over the Kentucky House of Representatives for the first time in 95 years. And we've passed a string of pro-business, pro-job legislation that I like to think helped contribute to that low unemployment rate that we had in Kentucky. Obviously, a lot of that is national, but, each state can and will be different based upon their policies. And, politicians like to take credit, I did this and it caused all this stuff. I would rather us get out of the way and allow businesses to flourish and create jobs. And so what I've done to help that personally is in 2018, I passed a workers' compensation overhaul bill, and I didn't know anything about workers' compensation before that, but leadership pegged me and said, you're going to figure this out and you're going to fix it. And rates for workers' compensation for every employer across the state, on average, so every employer hasn't seen this, but on average has gone down 25% due to those changes. And it was mostly a modernization. We even increased benefits. There were a couple of things we restricted, but really it was a modernization of our systems. And, this place is paying 25% less. And that's money that can go back into your education. And that was literally the hardest thing I've ever done as a professional, as a state representative. And I'm pretty proud of that one. Otherwise, with our Licensing Occupations Committee, which, as mentioned before, I'm chairman of, anybody who needs a license comes through my committee. So in my other job, I'm a realtor. That comes with a license. So anything that has to do with the licensing of realtors comes through my committee, as well as, lawyers need licenses, nurses, art therapists, architects, the list goes on and on. But the fun part is that anything alcohol and gambling related also comes through my committee. And I've worked very hard and probably done more to modernize our alcohol laws in Kentucky than anybody else ever. And they were all based still on a system that was set up right after Prohibition was repealed. And so I've worked hard, and I've had a lot of support, including Senator Schickel from Boone County, who is my Senate cohort. He's the Senate Chair of Licensing Occupations. And we have worked to unleash the brewers, the wineries, the distillers. Anybody heard of bourbon before? I know none of you drink yet. But, we are the bourbon capital of the world, and yet they were still stymied by some of the laws that we had. So we've unleashed their ability to grow. And I like to think that all these policies have created jobs. And so those are things that I was directly involved in. And we've done other things in the legislature since we took over 4 years ago, including right to work, which if you talk to any economic development professional, they will tell you that so many companies, when they're looking to locate in an area, that's their first question is, are you a right to work state? And if the answer is yes, then they will consider coming. And if the answer is no, you immediately get crossed off the list. So we've done a lot of that, and we are working on legislation for next year. And there are others who are probably working on it more fervently than in a general sense, because that's their universe. I try to stick to running the stuff in my committee as best I can. But yeah, we're going to do what we can to make sure that people can, businesses can get back up and running. A lot of that's federal, that they've been, providing loans and whatnot directly to businesses, but get everyone back up and running so that people can get back to work and we can get back to that great economy we had earlier this year. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Renaya Landers, and I am a freshman scholar at Ignite. In 2016, President Trump made national headlines for his ideas of building a wall in order to keep out those who are not already in the country. So far, he has already covered an amount of 654 miles out of the estimated 1,300 miles. According to the American Immigration Council, in 2018, there were 107,721 immigrants working in Kentucky. This was 5% of the total labor force. This doesn't even account for the number of undocumented immigrants who may be working in Kentucky. Building a wall could stop people from wanting to enter the country, and in return, we would lose possible essential workers. Knowing this information, do you think building a wall may hurt Kentucky's overall economy?
Well, I don't know. The answer is probably yes and no. And let me just start by saying immigration is a federal issue. And so I have no direct impact upon that, but can I give you my general feelings on immigration policy? The system is broken. We have a need for workers from not all over the nation, or all over the world, okay? Not just, there are people who come here from Mexico, and that's the purpose of the wall, obviously. We need engineers. We have people come here to our college systems in America because we have the best college systems in the world, get an engineering degree, and then they're not allowed to stay. That's crazy. We need engineers in this country. I don't know, we're hundreds of thousands a deficit. Look, we have a horse industry. I've already talked about bourbon. If you leave Kentucky, especially if you leave America and say you're from Kentucky, people say horses or bourbon, because that's what we're known for. If we shut down all immigration, our horse business would disappear. It is run on immigrant labor, and it's a dirty little secret that nobody likes to talk about out loud. Construction business is very reliant on immigrant labor. And I've seen studies where if you build walls, if you get in and you know it's going to be harder to get back in, you'll just stay. There are visas where you can come in and work for 9 months and then go back home for 3 months and then come back for 9 months. Once you get in, if you think there's a wall there and you're not going to be able to get back in, you'll just stay and not go home. So it is counterproductive in that regard. On the flip side, we have laws that need to be followed. They worked at some point. They don't work anymore, and they need to be fixed. But I think of anybody familiar with the Oriental Walk restaurant in Fort Mitchell? Somebody? The adults are, the kids not so much. I know the owners. I consider them friends. Great guy, great family. Mike, he and his wife Helen own it, and they've been in business for 40-some years. And he waited in line in Hong Kong to get his legal visa, come here, left his wife and 2 daughters behind for a few years till he could get them to come here legally. So on the flip side, it's an insult to people like the Wongs who followed the rules to not have everybody follow the rules. But the rules need to change, and we're in such a polarized universe in Washington and in America that you can't even say the word immigration without people losing their ever-loving minds. And that needs to stop. We need to be able to have an intelligent conversation and everyone work together and say, here's some changes that need to be made. Let's stop demagoguing this and come up with a system that works for 2020, or let's say 2021. Let's not speak of 2020 if we can avoid it. So that's, I know I didn't maybe answer your question directly, but that's my thought on immigration, and I look forward to hopefully one day Washington getting their stuff together and fixing it.
Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Good morning. My name is Casey Fannin, and I am a freshman scholar at Ignite. The Black Lives Matter movement has been a major topic of discussion since 2013, but has recently resurfaced with the death of George Floyd and many other victims. Specifically, 15 million to 26 million people in the United States have participated in demonstrations over the death of George Floyd and others in recent weeks. Considering the issue at hand, how can we spread awareness about the subject in the classroom? What can we do to make sure the classroom is an equal environment for students?
It's an excellent question. Most of my thoughts have been, from a general state policy. Haven't really considered it from a school perspective. And given, you're all coming from the education section here, that makes sense that you would ask that. I do know, generally speaking, I understand that as a, white male, first thing I need to do is shut up and listen to people. And so probably the best thing I can do to answer your question directly is listen to the thoughts and opinions of those in the education profession, particularly, folks your age, people of different backgrounds, of what should and shouldn't be done, and figure out which of those are A, good ideas, and B, implementable, if that's a word, going forward. And, I think it would, who knows, maybe it'll be something that this college can work on and bring an idea to Frankfurt one day, or 2 or 3 ideas. The issue is complicated, it's difficult, and, I look forward to a day when we can get to the point where everyone feels like everyone is treated fairly and everyone feels like they're being treated fairly, no matter their background, their skin color, their race, their creed, and all that stuff. The key is that everyone needs to feel that way. And if I was smart enough to know how to fix it, I might be in someplace else, not here talking to you. I'm glad I am here. But it's a complicated subject that, the best thing I can do is listen to those who are closer to it and who are affected by it, and learn from it and figure out what the next step is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Representative Koenig. My name is Kenzie, and I'm a freshman scholar here at Ignite. I'm going to be acknowledging LGBTQ rights. In 2015, there had been a CNN interview where Donald Trump had said he does not support gay marriage. Also in 2015, Kim Davis was jailed for only 5 days when refusing to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. She had publicly announced that her fundamentalist religious beliefs precluded her from issuing marriage licenses to those same-sex couples. You both mentioned your values on your websites, although there had not been anything about what you believe when it comes to LGBTQ rights. What are your views on the rights of LGBTQ, and could you explain what you would do in a situation like Kim Davis's?
Well, yeah, I can explain my feelings on the Kim Davis thing. She, everybody know who Kim Davis is, right? Okay. Um, If she didn't feel like she could follow through with her responsibilities, that's her, I guess, right to feel that way. When she takes an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the state of Kentucky and the United States, when the Supreme Court issues a ruling like that, you have two options. You either follow it or you resign. And if she couldn't follow it, she should have resigned. You know, there's all sorts of decisions that come from, you know, the local, you know, circuit court in the county all the way up to the United States Supreme Court that no one likes all of them. But you live with them and you accept them because that's the process that has been set up, and we, you know, frankly, are fortunate to live in the greatest country on earth, and so that's specifically with the Kim Davis thing. The rest of your question, whenever there are issues that are, you know, provide government-sanctioned inequality that's not okay, and we need to figure out how to fix them. And I will say this, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't run for office to impose my view on others. I didn't run for office to get involved, frankly, in these social issues. I ran for office to create jobs, get government out of the way, and to the extent that any of these bills negatively affect and make an argument that these go both ways, I'm generally not a fan of telling businesses what they have to do, what they can and can't do. Obviously, you have to do that to some extent. But I'm also not a fan of these, like we call it the bathroom bill in Frankfurt, where you know, it says that schools have to, you know, you have to use a certain bathroom. You know, that's best left up to the local school district. What works in Jefferson County and Boone County doesn't work in Owsley County and Jackson County. So I don't support those things. I don't support these bills to restrict rights in this regard that make us less attractive to businesses to move here. So that's the best answer I got.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning. My name is Emma Edelman. I'm a freshman scholar here at Ignite. My question for you is about abortion. Seeing that you are a pro-life candidate and that about 40 of the 75% of adults in Kentucky are female, do you think male legislators should have a say in women's reproductive rights?
Well, given that that's what we run for and that's our job description, by definition, yes, there's a lot of things that you know, we have to get involved in, and that sometimes people know a lot about, sometimes people don't. I will say this, I understand that it's easy for me to have the positions and the views that I have as a male, and especially as a male who has no children, so doesn't have any daughters or anything to consider. So I understand that perspective. And, you know, obviously it's part of my upbringing, and, you know, it's becoming less, Northern Kentucky is becoming less, you know, pro-life, I think it's fair to say, but, you know, certainly when I grew up, that was quite common. And I will reiterate once again that that is not why I ran for office. If you look through the bills I've filed, I don't think you'll find a single one that deal with social issues like that. I'm in this to, help create jobs and get government out of the way and make government more efficient.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good morning, Representative Koenig. I'm Jamie Dalzell. I'm the social studies teacher here for the Education College. I just want to express my deep, sincerest thank you for coming and attending today, answering our questions with such thoughtful, insightful answers, and more than anything, your support of education. By showing up today, you've provided an authentic, genuine experience for our students and got them involved much more than they probably would have been in the normal electoral process. So again, thank you for your time. Another big thank you to the Ignite Institute. Mr. Darren Smith for organizing this, Boone and Kenton County School Districts for such an amazing, amazing facility where we could put on such a debate. Thank you for tuning in, and Representative Koenig, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.